This phase of my life began when we were both 19 years old. He had just been discharged from a treatment facility after struggling with substance use that began in his early teens. A long and difficult history that shaped much of his adolescence. I, on the other hand, had just moved back to my hometown after surviving a relationship that left me deeply scarred emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. It was a relationship marked by manipulation, control, and trauma, and by the time it ended, I had been officially diagnosed with complex PTSD. I felt like a shell of myself, existing in survival mode, constantly bracing for danger. Even when none was present, when we met, it felt like we were two people carrying the weight of our pasts, but trying, maybe even desperate, to find some kind of light. We had a lot of necessary patience for each other. There was a tenderness between us that came from mutual understanding, from the kind of emotional fluency that only people who've been deeply hurt seem to recognize in each other. For months, we just talked. We took our time. We built something rooted in presence and vulnerability before anything romantic even began. And when we did finally start dating, it felt immediate and natural, like we had already been emotionally tethered long before it became official. There was something about the way we connected that felt inevitable. Over the next several years, our dynamic was complicated and constantly shifting. We moved in and out of romantic and sexual involvement, at times clinging to each other with an almost desperate intensity, and other times pulling away, overwhelmed by our own internal battles. We were chaotic, inconsistent, often unruly, but underneath everything, the mésenges, the push and pull, he was always my best friend. That never changed. Our connection was unlike anything I'd experienced before. We saw each other, really saw each other, in a way that felt rare and grounding. There was patience, empathy, and an understanding between us that made me feel safe, even when everything else was falling apart. When we finally entered a fully committed relationship, it didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like returning home. But then, my worst fears slowly began to manifest in front of me. He relapsed, not just slightly, but catastrophically, falling into a terrifying combination of stimulants and depression. It was like watching someone I loved deeply become someone I didn't recognize, like a possession. Slow and brutal. His relapse didn't happen all at once. It was a slow erosion of trust, stability, and truth. At first, I tried to deny it. I made excuses, rationalized things, clung to the idea that this wasn't him, that it was just temporary. I didn't want to give up on him, and for a long time, I didn't. But as the months went by, the lies became more consistent, the manipulation more deliberate. He maintained an extensive physical and emotional affair with an ex he had always described as abusive and destructive, someone his entire family and friend circle despised. It was a betrayal that cut so deep it nearly broke me. His behavior became unpredictable, alien, even dangerous. I found myself trying to survive the day-to-day emotional chaos. I became hypervigilant. My sense of reality began to distort. I was forced to face the truth. I could no longer help him, and staying with him was slowly destroying me. It all reached a breaking point when he fell into full-blown psychosis. He was no longer safe, not for himself, and certainly not for me. Eventually, he agreed to be admitted to treatment, and with him finally safe in a facility, I was able to step back and actually breathe for the first time in what felt like forever. I took time off work and physically removed myself from the town where everything had happened, hoping that distance might offer some clarity, or at least some peace. It's now been 3.5 weeks since he entered treatment, and he's sober. He's making incredible progress. I see the light slowly coming back into his eyes, the subtle signs of confidence and self-trust It's surreal, beautiful, and heartbreaking. I sit across from him during visitation and just watch, sometimes completely There were weeks where I was genuinely preparing myself for the possibility that he wouldn't survive, that I would lose him entirely. Now, he's here again, but not quite. It's hard to reconcile, and while he's no longer in immediate danger, I am only now beginning to feel the full psychological impact of what we went through. The trauma has begun to surface in unexpected ways. I'm encountering bizarre, visceral triggers, The sight of couples holding hands, families with children, attractive women walking by, all of it hits me like a punch to the gut. It's like my brain is screaming at me that something is unsafe, even when there's no threat. I feel unrecognizably fragile, and that alone fills me with frustration and shame. I've never been a bitter or jealous person. I don't recognize some of the thoughts that are bubbling up inside of me now. I feel like I am already mourning a future that, deep down, I know we'll never have. Even if everything went perfectly from this point forward, flashbacks hit me constantly. My mind loops through the worst moments. The betrayals, the things he said to me when he was under the influence, the realizations I came to that still make my stomach drop. These memories chase me in my waking life and haunt me in my sleep. I'm dreaming about it every single night. I feel like I'm unraveling, like my identity is getting lost in the aftermath. A strange kind of guilt creeps in too. I want to believe it was the drugs. I want to split the version of him who hurt me from the version of him I love, but it doesn't work that way. That kind of compartmentalization feels naive, like I'm lying to myself. And yet, every time I try to consider stepping away, to prioritize my own healing, I feel this immense guilt. It feels unjust, like I'm holding him accountable for something the addiction did. But if not him, then who? Who do I hold responsible for the way I was treated? The pain is real either way. He's getting out in just a few days, and I don't know what to expect. I don't know what version of him will walk back into the world. I'm maintaining a supportive role for now, doing my best to stay grounded, to stay ready for anything, and to center myself when possible. But the truth is, I'm exhausted. I feel like a survivor of something massive, something I don't even have words for yet. And while I want him to succeed more than anything, I also know that I need to find my own path forward, even if it means walking it alone. Next story.
My husband and I met in college about 8 years ago. I am someone who has felt invisible my whole life, and he came up and talked to me about classwork. And then before I left, he made sure to give me his name and get my name. I couldn't believe anyone had gone out of their way to talk to me, so I looked him up online and connected with him on social media, at which point he invited me to study together. We did, but the study session and some other attempted get-togethers were super awkward, so we were kind of just friends for a while. He maintains he had no feelings for me during that period, or when he initially introduced himself to me, but was somewhat interested when he set up the study date. I also was going through some stuff and not feeling much for him or life in general, but figured I'd want to date him once I was feeling better. Eventually the time came and I was ready, so I put the moves on him and we got together. We've been together ever since and got married 5 years later and have been married for 3 years now. While no one is perfect, and I mean this literally, not in a making excuses way, he showed up for me in exceptional ways and demonstrated his love for me in a way I've never experienced from anyone ever. This was extremely consistent while we were dating. There were some slight hiccups, but nothing beyond people learning and growing while their frontal lobes closed. I never felt very emotionally close with him, but I know how hard it can be to open up to someone, so I figured it would get easier with time and we'd become more emotionally in tune. We connected in many other ways: shared sense of humor, some, but not many, shared interests, many significant shared values, spend lots of quality time together, and respect and admire each other's character. When we got together, we discussed marriage as a shared goal and had the exact same timeline in mind if the relationship worked out. When the time came, though, I felt rather disappointed. I have never been someone who ever thought about a proposal or a wedding. Ever. So I was surprised at how let down these things made me feel. From my perspective, my input and feelings were not considered at all, and it was very low effort in terms of his interest and enthusiasm. I can go into detail if necessary, but don't want to write a novel. Anyway, since marriage, I've felt a lot of the demonstrations of love he used to show have begun to fade, slowly but surely. I have also felt very small cracks of disrespect showing up. I look back and see ways in which our relationship has been asymmetrical, with me feeling unseen and unimportant that I had assumed would just take time. I also still feel that emotional distance from him. I have put a lot of work into being the best partner I can be, and don't see evidence of this on his part. I feel like not only is he completely out of touch with my emotions in ways that make me feel incredibly lonely, but he is also out of touch with his own feelings and self. So if I want to know him, I have to put in a lot of emotional labor to coax it out of him, work him through it, and listen and act, which often feels unreciprocated and unappreciated. I feel like if we were emotionally in touch, the other stuff would probably not be an issue. I suspect the small cracks of disrespect and what feels like fewer expressions of love are a symptom of getting comfortable with someone without putting in the work the way I have. There are a lot of possible reasons for this, but one I can't get out of my head is that it may be because I ultimately pursued him. I wonder if he would have exercised more effort with a woman he had spotted, asked out, and really wanted to be with. I know a lot of people will say it doesn't matter, but I really suspect that making myself convenient may have made him take me for granted, since he really hasn't had to work for me at all. I realize I was so desperate for love that the good things he did do seemed like more than enough, when I probably should have paid attention to the everyday rhythm of me investing more effort into the relationship. Of course, there are things I can do, but I've done them. I dragged us to premarital couples counseling after telling him I wanted him to set it up for us again, because even at that time I felt concerned about the asymmetry. I got books for us to read together. I tried setting up times to check in about the marriage. I'm tired of feeling like the only one who cares and wants to maintain the relationship. I don't think I can do it anymore. The other day I told him I need more emotional availability from him, and I'm rather worried that he doesn't get it. He could ask. He could set up counseling. He could pay attention to the opportunities I have been giving him to tune in emotionally, despite the fact it's really difficult for me to do this anymore, as his emotional disengagement has led to him saying really insensitive things to me. I believe inadvertently that have really stuck with me and hurt me and made me avoidant of opening up to him. I've been feeling extra off since we bought our first house together 2 years ago. And finally, the other day was in a place to sit down and really write everything down and see if I could find a pattern. It felt like a gut punch to realize I'm the better part of a decade into this relationship, and this issue seems not to have improved since the day we met. I was so in denial because of all the good parts of the relationship and all his truly amazing traits. But I don't think I can live the rest of my life like this. I'm starting to feel like I've made a horrible mistake. I do not want to waste my life in a relationship that whittles away my self-worth by making me feel invisible, unseen, unimportant, and desperately lonely. It ultimately doesn't matter if he means to make me feel that way or not. I don't know what else I can say or do.